tego typu. Same old, same old. Pana. Wow. Dun, 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 dun. O, jeszcze możemy sobie coś znaleźć. Goticzka są. O. Jennifer Lopez. Gothic. Kurwa. Simek, o Jezus.
Kilometers. Icebergs. Today we are taking a look at one of the Gothic icebergs. But before we
Gothic.
jump into the cold waters, I want
Same
to thank all
old,
the people
same
who helped me
old.
finding out about the more obscure entries. First and foremost, I want to thank all the people who worked on the gothicarchive.org, a fabulous page where you can find many things about the early versions of Gothic, the development history, and other interesting subjects. It is a true goldmine for every Gothic fan, and I will, in the future, take a closer look at some of the subjects presented there. I want to thank Flosha, the project leader and creative director of Phoenix Tales, Delvin, Krygreg, Pangur, Saradok the Master Speedrunner, Mike Hoge and other
Saradok.
developers of the original games for their beautiful interviews that cleared up a lot of things and speculations, all the guys from the original thread on Reddit, and of course the whole of Piranha Bytes and THQ. If I forgot to mention somebody, please excuse me and the mess that is my brain. With that out of the way, let's begin.
Let's begin.
Tier 1. The Barrier.
The barrier. Barrier river.
There are 3 gods in the Gothic universe. Innos, god of fire, light, laws and justice. Adanos, the god of water and balance, and the Dark Lord Beliar, who watches over the realm of death. It is said on multiple occasions that the gods choose their avatars. Think of it as champions who fight for a certain deity.
We do this
One
for
can
freedom.
speculate that the hero is the avatar of Innos, or maybe Adanos? Who knows?
Ananos.
The undead dragon in Gothic 2 was definitely the avatar of Beliar until we
Yeah!
decided that others sucked up all of his
Metallica!
evil energies. Retcons.
Metallica.
Retroactive
Redcons.
changes in the continuity. Well, obviously, Gothic has tons of
Po co ja tu
retcons.
wszedłem?
I don't know if the creator of the chart had anything particular in mind, but I want to explain a few of them. 1. In the beginning, it was not clear whether the Valley of Mines was part of the
Tu
mainland
chciałem, boss.
or an island.
Boże jedyny.
And while in the case
Mamma mia.
sequel it is part of the mainland, Gothic 2 put it in the middle of the ocean. 2. The major split into the circle of water and fire. It's more of an unlucky interpretation of one of the dialogues. However, they were always meant to be different circles. 3. The gods being changed into stereotypical deities. For example, Innos became inherently good and Beliar evil. Before that, it was more shrouded in mystery, but also had room for more nuances. Beliar was the god of death, which made him part of the natural cycle of life, so to speak. But in Gothic 2, he became the driving force behind the main antagonists in the franchise. 4. Another huge retcon is the nature of the orcs. In the first game, it was said that they summoned the Sleeper to destroy their enemies, but then the Archdemon turned against them and cursed them with undeath. They were a regular culture just trying to survive, but in Gothic 2, they were changed to loyal servants of Beliar, acting as his foot soldiers. Fear spell, the Scream. In Gothic 3, the spell Fear
Ignite, the next Ignite.
uses an icon that is clearly inspired by the painting The Scream, made by Edvard Munch. These animals are sentient. There is a farmer
Muszę to
called
rozwinąć po
farm
prostu.
at
Okej.
around Trellis. If you start a farm,
Same old,
animals
same
apparently
old.
gather around and watch the fight like humans would. Unfortunately, I couldn't recreate the scenario. The community patch and content mod may have fixed this, and Gothic 3 without any mods was impossible.
Corn.
All I could find was this little screenshot. Where is the guru? This is the title of an error message that can sometimes occur in Gothic 3. To honor this beautiful piece, the creators
Zobaczmy.
of the Gothic 3
To jest
community
50% szans, że się spieprzy.
quest
Wcześniej było z
to
40 czy tam
capture
30.
after this famous error.
Ale dobra.
The Morgrab.
1300, dobra. Niech będzie 1300.
You know, like our
No idziemy expić, no.
Earth. Gothic 3's missing crew members. In Gothic 2, you have a lot of options how to
Control
name your crew
bollocks.
for the order of
Chamber
execution.
of
For
Innocence.
example, you can take one captain with you out of 3 choices.
A, bo tak, żeśmy wcześniej skończyli tak troszkę z dupska
Be found near the monastery,
tego typu.
and Jack, the man guarding the lighthouse. In the third installment, we reunite with our 4 friends, Vatras, Angar, Laris, and Lee. But the Smith Bennett, Biff, Wolf, Girion, and any of the 3 captains don't
Same old, same old.
in Extremo. I don't know what the creator meant with this, but yeah, In Extremo is the band that plays in some versions of Gothic 1, and yes, they are indeed a real medieval rock band from Germany. Check them out. Fun fact, the old camp music is based on their interpretation of the song Hermanelig, which they also play in their game in Chapter 2. Hermanelig is an old Swedish folk song about a female troll who wants to marry a man. He refuses, however, because she isn't a Christian woman. Nameless hero
Christian
is
woman.
Michael. Well, both of them look very, very similar, and for a long time I was under the assumption that they modeled the hero after Mike, one of the founders of Piranha Bytes, who worked on Gothic 1, Gothic 2 plus expansion pack, Gothic 3 and Risen 1. In an interview, it was however revealed that the hero's face being so similar to Mike's likeness was more of a coincidence. Only suspicious if you ask me. Swimming into Carinas. It is common knowledge that there are multiple ways to get into the port city in Gothic 2, and if you, for example, go mountaineering on the north side of Carinas, you can drop into the water and swim right into the harbor. Don't forget to talk to Laris when you do that though. Eternal Wanderer's staff is Gandalf's staff. The weapon can be found in Gothic 3 and is an integral part to
Ja pierdolę.
and it shows a lot of similarities with the staff of Gandalf, the Wizard of Lord of the Rings. It is made of wood, looks like a gnarled branch, and has some sort of crystal on it. Yeah, I can see that. 13th Mage Confusion. In Gothic 1 it is said that the barrier was created by 13 mages.
Please, be patient. Well, when we, the 12 magicians, created the barrier back then, Our magic powers were directed and controlled by a 13th magician.
A 13th magician? I thought there were only 12.
But that is wrong, and could also be considered a retcon. However, Mike Holger explained this in a video where he said that it was always planned that 12 mages create a barrier, but some other developer misread this, and so the voice actors got the numbers wrong when they recorded the voiceover. The thing is, Milton only became a fire mage when he was thrown into the colony, so he doesn't drown. I guess a simple mistake goes quite a long way. Eternal Wanderer. Well, this Lord character led the nomadic tribes of Varan, and he was the first man to be chosen by Innos, becoming his avatar. His story is told in books and stone tablets in Gothic 3.
In the beginning, the nomads roamed the land, and the Eternal Wanderer led the way. And Enos spoke to the Eternal Wanderer, "Lay aside your staff," and in its stead, Enos gave him the scepter, and the Eternal Wanderer became his servant.
Lack of female characters. Kind of self-explained. There aren't many women in Gothic 1. They are mistresses to the Orberand and Iberion, and there are no quests associated with them. To be honest, I would like to see a few additional quests that involve them in the remake, but in general, women should still be a rarity in the Valley of Mons. Gothic 2 changes the situation and we have a lot more women, and they are way more significant. Hell, some of them have big potential, are really likable, and I wish they would play a bigger role. Then Gothic 3 comes along and suddenly the women that we encounter have barely anything to say anymore and their role is heavily diminished. What a mess! Quentin's Bandit Camp. In the north of the Valley of Mines, near the Troll Canyon, you can find a band of bandits and one named character called Quentin. These guys will kill you on sight and their existence was a bit of a mystery, at least for me. People speculated about them being part of the new camp, but very recently I learned that they had no real purpose and just did their own thing on their own. This information is from an interview with Mike Holger from a while back. Next step makes no sense. Look, the man is a guard. Why would he pick some mushrooms for the cook of the outer ring? On top, why would a trained guardsman be killed by a bunch of nobles? People speculated about this, but Mike again confirmed in an interview that it's just what it is. A guard who picked mushrooms for the cook in the outer ring, getting killed by a bunch of nobles. The Mighty Alien Dwarf. This entity is the author of some Easter eggs in the Gothic franchise. Behind the Orc Wall in Gothic 2 in the Old Mine Valley, you can find a sign that says, and I quote, "Okay man, you made it behind the Great Orc Wall. As you see, the story of the Orcish horde behind this wall is a complete fake. There is nothing more to find here. This place is abandoned. It's the end of the world." But me, a mighty alien dwarf which not depends to this game's story, and which name is not of public interest here, wanted to warn you. You've been tricked to believe a story which is not true. They want to get you. Do not believe in anything they say. Keep your eyes open. End of quote. This obviously doesn't mean that dwarves are canon, nor that the text and its implications are real, but more on that in a later entry. The Room with No Doors. This is an Easter egg in Gothic 3 that can be found above the entrance to Zubin's palace. You will find a message there that says, "You found
Message
the
from
in the room
fucking-
without doors. I hope you feel happy now. TMAD. No, I'm not dead. I watch you." This message is written by the mighty alien dwarf as well, Undead Mud. The fan-favorite character Mud from Gothic 1.
Hey man, new year? I haven't seen you before.
My mana is gone.
I'll join you for a while, if you don't mind. I'm sure you'll need a friend.
Well, not really, but via insert codes in the Marvin mode, you can cheat an undead version of Mud into existence. What was the question? Once you leave the Marvin mode by typing 42 while in the character screen, the message, "What was the question?" will appear on screen to confirm that you are no longer in cheat mode. Just like 42, the code to exit Marvin mode, it is a reference to the movie The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, in which the supercomputer Deep Thought is calculating for a very long time, searching for the meaning of life. The answer to the ultimate question, for which civilizations waited 7.5 million years in the movie, is apparently 42. But in the end, they forgot what the great question was. Soulstone. Upon killing the last boss of Gothic 2, the Undead Dragon, you can pick up a soulstone from its body, an item that has no use in the game. Maybe it was just a reference to the soulstones in the Diablo universe, or they had plans for this item in Gothic 3, which were ultimately never realized. Dragon elements make no sense. So, what are the traditional 4 elements? Water, fire, air, and earth. The dragons, however, supposedly being representatives of each element, are of fire, earth, water, albeit in frozen form, and swamp? Yeah, this one is a bit silly. But imagine an air dragon. Air dragon sounds like the name of a corny glam metal band. Reserve that one. Yarkandar Car. On top of Yarkandar's canyon near the library, you will find the body of an old car. With it, a note that says something along the lines of, "I always wanted to make a game with cars." Well, I guess whoever wrote that just did. Sea monster. If you swim too far out into the sea in Gothic 2, a small cinematic starts playing which shows the hero getting eaten by sea monsters. Take a look. Hidden note. Well, to be honest, I don't know what that is. This is way too specific and I couldn't find anything. There are other hidden notes, but they're already on this item, so let's just move on. Gilbert. Hey, I made a video about Gilbert. Check it out. It's called The Sad Stories from the Colony. He's a poor hermit living in the mountains of the Valley of Mines in Gothic 1. He left the old camp because he had trouble with the guards, and in Gothic 2 you will find a letter written by him. Gilbert wanted to escape after the fall of the barrier and likely got killed on the way out, but his true fate, however, is unknown. The orcish hordes behind the wall are a ruse. Yes, technically this is true, but I think the reason for that is somewhat different. Look, back in the day, computers weren't all too powerful, so the developers had to save resources that the game would run kind of smoothly.
Remember,
Cutting off
we
the
do
whole
this for
east of the
freedom.
colony with an orcish wall seemed to be a nice way to make sure that it runs smoothly, and it also gives you a nice insight on how the orcs wage war. In terms of lore, however, I think that there are things. Why the bunch of
Play
orcs
Mono,
behind? Unused enemies. A panther and alligator exist in the game file, and it seems that they were created for the expansion pack Night of the Raven. You can even cheat them into the game. Once you know that, the small line by Alligator Jack is actually somewhat fun.
What is it you hunt?
No good for you. And there aren't any left around here anyway.
Gothic the Comic. This comic was promotional material for the release of Gothic 1. A physical copy of it is quite a rarity these days, but it is indeed non-canonical. However, you can read it online. Just take a look into the gothicarchive.org. Hidden Piranha Bytes logos. Piranha Bytes has a few hidden logos in the third game. One is on a watchtower in Vanguard, and the other one on the border of Miltana and Nordmar. piranhas are watching. This message, along several other lines, appears if you trigger the sea monster cutscene when the Marvin mode is activated. Take a look. The hero's crime. Well, the reason why the nameless hero was thrown into the colony is one of the big mysteries of the game. It was intentionally left out so the players can make it up in their minds. However, there is a novel about Gothic which was written before the release of the game called The Sleeper's Ban. And in it we can find out what this mysterious crime was. Let me read it to you. It had just been a week ago when he returned from an extensive colliery tour with people he thought of as his friends at the time. In the early morning, he was awakened by the city guards who invaded his chamber, followed by the sleep-drunk figures of his terrified parents. Astonished, he noted that he was suspected to have stolen a magically almost valuable amulet from the treasury of one of the city councils. And his astonishment turned into horror when, behind a tapestry, that very gem was revealed. Well, apparently the nameless hero got set up by his own stepbrother. Risen is a Gothic 3 sequel. Personally, I don't like this theory. I see both universes as being separated. But initially, it was intended that both games are connected. Especially if you take the Adonos ending of Gothic 3. There is an abandoned storyboard for the intro cinematic of Risen, where familiar faces can be seen, but we will get more into detail in a later entry of this aspect. Jowood and Piranha Bytes IP conflict. IP stands for intellectual property, so in this case, the Gothic franchise. Apparently, after Gothic 3's horrible release, there were some problems regarding the further development. Since Jowood had the rights to the IP, Piranha Bytes could no longer develop a Gothic game. Years later, the rights were bought by THQ, and now we get a remake, Gothic 5. Back in the day, Piranha Bytes registered trademarks for the Gothic franchise. Well, it seems they registered quite a lot of them, and Gothic 5 was one of those trademark titles. Abuji's Final Prophecy. In the port city of Gothic 2, we can find a peculiar man in the marketplace whose name is Abuji ibn Rabir ibn al-Markali ibn Aji Ashari. He's a seer, clairvoyant, astrologer, and tobacco salesman. Every chapter you can pay him to see into the future, and he will tell you certain things about the upcoming chapter. In the last chapter, however, his message is very cryptic. Have a listen.
Nothing more I can see.
Well, that sounds way more interesting than whatever we got in Gothic 3. Sadly, another retcon. Dragon Lords. The Dragon Lords were ancient and mythical warriors who hunted and killed dragons. They wore the sturdiest armors reinforced with magical ore and fought with weapons crafted from the same ore and imbued with the blood of those creatures. These guys are referenced in a book that is written by Zardos, the Almanac. It can be found deep within the monastery before you head off to Ulduran. Satyrus' plan wouldn't have worked.
I was sent by Satyrus. We need your help. The magicians of water plan to use their big ore mound.
The ore mound is not the solution.
It isn't?
No.
Well, this is what Zardos tells us in Gothic 1. Since Zardos knows a lot about the barrier, he might be right with this theory. On the other hand, I doubt that anyone in the Gothic universe ever made a massive mound of magical ore explode. A G is an O, a T is an H, and an I is a C. This is a line spoken by the hermit in Night of the Raven, the one you can give clothes to. Once he teaches you how to read the old language, this little Easter egg is spelling Gothic.
Quite simple. A G is an O, a T is an H, and an I is a C, if you understand.
Gothic.
Quite logical.
Nie wiem, czy ja go pytałem w ogóle o to? Chyba nie. To teraz w ogóle się dowiedziałem o tym goticzku.
Who did you fight with?
With a fellow named Valentino. He often hangs out in the tavern near the temple. I'm not usually a violent person, but that guy needed his face rearranged in the worst ways.
Well, what have we here?
Have you no manners? That's disgusting. Oh,
That's disgusting.
filthy rabble. Haven't you a job where you ought to be? But I suppose no one would miss a down-at-heel fellow like you, hey? Well, if you had as much gold as I do, you wouldn't have to work either. But you'll never be that rich.
I see I'm gonna have lots of fun with you.
You can do the same, get a nice
You can do the same. You can do the same.
chest, and while you're at it, you can try out Igna's Scroll of Oblivion on him.
Oblivion.
Go back to Rigas and tell him about the encounter. He gives you a little keepsake that once belonged to the arrogant snob.
I gave him a sound beating.
He deserved it. Here, I found this ring on him when our little disagreement had been settled. You're welcome to pass it on to the next person who beats him up.
After that, Corrigan, the owner of the tavern in the Traders District, will have a special dialogue. And after that, you can hand him over Valentino's ring.
Valentino was unable to pay his bar tab last night. He was blathering something about Rob and paying me later. I was really.
And what did you do?
Well, I gave him a good thrashing. What else?
Here, take this ring.
What? I don't understand.
It used to belong to Valentino. You're welcome to pass it on to the next person who tans his hide.
Fire mages can see Xardus' tower. Well, sure, nowadays we can see the whole valley with a beautiful DX11 renderer, but back in the day, or if you play without any mods, the distant regions are shrouded in fog, limiting your view distance drastically. Even though you can't see it when standing in the castle's courtyard, up on the watchtower you can definitely spot it. But yeah, they definitely should hide Xardus' tower better in the remake. Sunken huts in the new camp. Another shameless
Sunken.
advertisement. Take a look at the video of
Sunken.
the new camp from the Gothic lore series on my channel. In that video I have a theory that before the dam was built in the new camp, people already started building huts in the small valley, but then Homer, the Rice Lord, and Lee were like, no, we're gonna build a dam and the whole area will be flooded. It's for the greater good. And then some poor bastards became either homeless or developed guilds. Main quest, New Camp Bias, is probably referring to the situation that unfolds in Chapter 4 of Gothic 1. Spoilers ahead for a game that is more than 23 years old. Well, if you are part of the old camp, they are going to kick you out, and your only choice then is to join the mercenaries or Witam.
Traitor? To think we let a thing like you join the guards.
Boże, ale to jest takie...
You're in with that new kid.
Nie wiem, co miałby to takie, nie wiem... Jakieś kurwa... Jezu, jak to się nazywa? Nocnych tajemnic, o. Grupa nastolatków. To się dorwała do mikrofonu i o, zrobimy sobie... dubbing.
I have been exiled from the old camp because I have helped you.
You don't belong to the old camp any longer? Then I welcome you to our community.
The sect camp is excluded from this decision.
How can I become a Templar?
First, you will have to serve as a novice for a while to prove that you truly believe in the sleeper.
I can kinda see why that is. You know, the Brotherhood has a very hard time in Chapter 4 with Iberion, their leader, dead, and Colom, with a lot of Templars and novices just gone. I don't really see them having the need to recruit new people now that their camp basically is in shambles and they realize that they are worshipping a big old demon. Swamps of Varan. The book, The Battle of Varan, that you can find in Gothic 1 in the library of the Water Mages, tells the story of how Roba conquered the desert realm. One passage describes the cavalry not gaining any ground because of the deep and swampy soil they fought on. This doesn't necessarily mean that Varan had swamps. Maybe it rained and the
4000, wow.
so soaked with water and
2200 prawie, 1500. 1500.
Although this theory would be more in line with the actual Varan that we got, I think it is a shame that these lore bits weren't respected. I think that swamps would have been a great addition to Gothic 3. You see, the desert is very vast and its landscape is getting boring very quickly. I think the game would have profited by having more biomes like swamps and canyons, but that is a topic for another day. Sleeper, Minecrawler, similarity. Both creatures have some characteristics that are very similar. Their head shape is comparable, they have mandibles, and they walk on multiple legs. Although their body shape is different, and the neck of the sleeper is longer than that of the crawler. The eyes, however, are interesting. While the final crawlers have very different ones, the early versions of the Minecrawler warrior has eyes that are akin to the ones of the archdemon. Both are green and evil. In the end, the crawlers have a very insectoid look, while the sleeper has a more fleshy, Cthulhu-like appearance, for the lack of a better word. For a very long time I thought they really do look alike, but the more you analyze them, the more differences come to light. Dexter's dialogue without Knight of the Raven. Dexter and his goons exist in Gothic 2 Classic, but obviously the questline surrounding the missing people, in connection to the farmer or baron, is missing. Take a look at what happens if you talk to him without the add-on.
Oh man, you'd have done better not to show up here. You're the wrong man in the wrong place.
Dexter's dialogue without Knight of the Raven. Last time I showed you what happens if you talk to Dexter in Gothic 2 without the expansion pack Knight of the Raven. Well, I forgot the most crucial thing about it. If you don't learn about Dexter, things will play out exactly like I showed them to you.
Oh man, you'd have done better not to show up here. You're the wrong man in the wrong place.
It's the wrong thing. Under attack.
With the foolish bandit who stands guard down the path from Xardus' tower and weasel additional information out of him, you will get to know that the middleman responsible for the wanted posters is actually Dexter from the colony.
10 gold pieces for the name of the guy who raised the bounty.
Oh man, I really can't do that.
Spit it out already.
Oh man, alright. His name is Dexter. Near the big farm, there's a steep rock. There's a watchtower up there, and a few mines. He has his hideout somewhere nearby.
I just realized I haven't got 10 gold pieces left.
If you are allowed into the bandit
Oh, I just
hideout,
realized.
their boss and then confront the former shadow, this will happen.
Well, what are you doing?
I'm looking for a few answers. Someone is passing around pieces of paper with my face on them. Someone told me it's you.
Somebody talks too much. But it's true. I gave my boys the wanted posters. I didn't have any other choice. When I tried to escape from the Valley of Mines, the soldiers discovered me and drove me into a trap. I thought I was done for, But then suddenly this figure appeared out of the darkness. He wore a black robe with a hood and a mask over his face, and he spoke with a voice that was altogether not human. But he offered me his help.
For freedom.
He brought me out of the valley and offered me 1,000 gold pieces for your head. Hey, what was I supposed to do? If I'd turned him down, he'd have killed me.
Where can I find this man?
I think he's somewhere in the Valley of Mines.
And what do you intend to do now? Kill me?
Yeah, but you set us all free. That's why I'm giving you another chance. Beat it. Disappear. Make yourself invisible. Go and don't cross my path again. If I see you around here again, I won't hesitate to kill you.
So, before Night of the Raven was a thing, it was a seeker who helped Dexter getting out of the valley after he got caught by soldiers, with a price and the heroes ahead. Hidden note. This hidden note could be the one that the hero finds in the new camp after the arrival of the dragons. In one of the houses, half covered with snow and ice, one can find a letter that was, during classic Gothic 2, hinting at the future of the water mages, and I quote, "We have left the camp. Now that the barrier has fallen, we will seek out the center of the destruction. Maybe we will find there the answers we sought for so many years. Adanos alone knows where our journey will take us. Adanos is with us. Saturus." While it was an interesting read during the classic days, it raises more questions with the expansion pack in mind. What does he mean when he is talking about the center of destruction? Is he already talking about the earthquakes which emit from Jarkandar? How could they sense these stars down in the Valley of Mines? Also, the line about answers that they sought for so long. What are the original questions to those? The water mages came to Karinis to help the fire mages with the creation of the barrier, not to investigate some long-lost mystery. Or did they? Sadly, these things aren't really cleared up, not even in Gothic 3. My best guess is that this letter was written by a developer during a time where the expansion pack was still in the early stages and they didn't know about concrete plot details. Fidel Castro. This is referring to a test quest giver in Gothic 3 that developers implemented to test quests. You can spawn him by entering Marvin mode and type spawn Fidel Castro into the console. Body search cheat. To be honest with you guys, I do not have a single clue what this is about. Obviously it's referring to one of the cheats, but I don't know. I really don't know. I asked around and nobody had a clue as well, so if you know something about it, please let me know in the comments. Thanks. Avatar of Adanos. Well, this is the theory that the hero is not the avatar of Enos, but rather an avatar of Adanos, the god of balance. This would make sense because the forces of Beliar become stronger by the day, and Enos' might diminishes in Gothic 1 and 2 significance. Adanos then chooses the Nameless One as his champion to counter Beliar's growing influence, and to finally bring balance to the force.
That would only slow me down.
Wait, what? Car in Jarkandar.
Jarkandar.
Well, we already had that. Thank you. Next one. Talamon Oddity. Talamon is a member of the Circle of Fire, and he resides in the monastery. This entry might be hinting at the fact that Talamon wears the robe of a High Magician of Fire, the robe usually reserved for the Council. While Pyrokar, Serpantes, and Ulthar are the head of the monastery, Talamon has to spend his days in the damp darkness, guarding the vaults below the church. Maybe he once was part of the council. Who knows? Maybe he was in cahoots with Babo. You know, the novice who is missing some important documents. Then Pyrokar found out about his mortal delights and banished him into the cellar to wipe clean his dirty mind. Well, if you know more about this, please let me know down in the comments. Thank you. Jack. Whoa, why so precise with these entries? Well, Jack is the guardian of the lighthouse. He got kicked out of his abode by bandits, and since then he resides in the harbor of Corinus. Fun fact: most lighthouse keepers or people associated with lighthouses in Piranha Bytes games are called Jack. You could find a Jack near Ardea, who is not the one from Corinus. Then there is a Jack in the Risen game, and even in Elex a certain Jack is about to get eaten by a man called Hannibal. And those you can find at, well, you guessed it, a lighthouse. Eye of Inno's design flaw. Well, to use the Eye of Innos, you need the essence of a dragon to make it work. But how did they get the first dragon heart to make the amulet usable in the first place? Yes, they had the ritual in Gothic too, but I guess they only did that to kind of repair the gem inside. I mean, they could have had some mages who started the amulet back in the day, but I think that this is what this entry is referring to. If you know more about this,
Pozdro.
please let us all know in the comments. Urshak led the attack against Fajeth. Once we return to the Valley of Mines to kill the dragons, we can find Urshak right above the mining camp of Fajeth, and it seems that he is watching them. While the seemingly disgraced orc shaman observes the humans, a group of orcs is attacking the camp. Kind of a neat theory if you ask me, especially if you keep in mind that Urshak behaves very differently once he knows you killed his mentor, Hoshpak. Maybe he was a double agent all the time, but what sense does it make? Did he just use us to get rid of the sleeper who cursed his brothers and enslaved his people? We might.
Old damage, nie.
Fire armor. This one is only available via insert cheats in Gothic 2 Night of the Raven. It looks like the robe of the dark arts, but with a fire
Zajebiste, no.
effect. The insert code
Muszę to
is
połączyć jakoś.
guitar_firearmor_add-on. And I wonder if it was supposed to be used at one point of the expansion pack. Getting to the blank rune before Aegon. This one is a bit tricky because it requires some prerequisites. Once you got all tasks from the High Council of Fire, head off to search the blank rune. On your way, you will encounter the magical golem, the one that you usually kill with Inno's hammer that you stole from the reliquary. Just ignore the living rock and continue running. Once you reach the general area of the Black Troll, talk to Grimbald the Hunter.
Hey, you! Are you waiting for someone?
Not anymore. You're here now, aren't you?
Hello.
I've got matters to attend to.
Don't talk nonsense. What can you possibly have to do here in the wilderness that's so important?
What are you up to?
I want to hunt the snappers up there, but I think there may be too many for me alone.
Count me out on that.
Then scram, coward.
He wants you to join him on a snapper hunt. However, you have to decline this. Now move into the hidden cave system, and you will find the hall empty. If you leave the cave now with the runestone in your bags, Aegon will be outside, awaiting you.
You found the hiding place before me. That cannot be! That must not be! I shall not permit it! They won't even find your corpse.
Kurwa no.
Gothic 1 manual, non-canon. Well,
A nie, bo...
like I said in the beginning, many things changed during the development of Gothic 1. That is why we have so many retcons today. You could find the PDF of the manual
Tak, bo tego się nie da
on
połączyć, tak.
gothicarchive.org. In it are some interesting bits which aren't canonical anymore. The king, for example,
Kurwa, to ja wszystko straciłem.
and it describes
Dobra,
some
chuj tam.
members of the old camp receiving visions, even though it was just Berion who later became Iberion, the leader of the Brotherhood. It is also mentioned that the water mages wanted to find out what went wrong with the barrier, but it is actually Xardus who secluded himself from his fellow mages to find out why the barrier's properties changed. Undead dragon on orc banner. Yeah, there is a dragon creature on the orcish banners in Gothic too. Is that the undead one? Yeah, maybe. You can kinda see its ribcage. Well, it's up for you to decide. You may be innocent. This is a line that appears presumably in the player kit for Gothic 1. The player kit is needed to install modifications. I couldn't make it work and didn't find it, so I have no proof for this. If you have any other information, please let me know. Xardas versus Saturas in the intro. So, there is this theory that says that the narrator of the intro is actually Saturas and not Xardas, because they share the same voice actor. Can we really tell? Kind of. The narrator says, and I was one of them. Well, since Xardas isn't part of any magic guild inside the barrier, doing his own thing, it is safe to assume that the voice is indeed that of the necromancer.
To make it impossible for them to escape, the king sent out the best magicians of the kingdom to create a magic barrier around the I was one of them.
Hiding in barrels. Back in the day, it was planned that thieves play a much larger role in Gothic 1. Early on, during the development of the game, the developers thought that it would be cool to have an option to escape a situation if people went looking for you because you stole something or killed someone. The barrel was the solution for that.
4000,
People
tak.
are looking for you, just hide in a barrel until the commotion has died. Unfortunately, this aspect of the game was heavily toned down in the
200
final
na
version,
200.
but the barrels
810 na sekundę.
this early idea. Talking to Quahodron, not knowing the language of the builders. So, if you are on the quest to open the gate in the temple of
No to gorsze
the
jest.
Raven disappeared, you have to
Ja muszę mieć 6, bo wtedy będzie zajebiście, tak.
Quahodron. Usually by then,
Nie,
you
czekajcie,
have learned
czekajcie,
the
trzeba będzie
ancient
sprawdzić.
language to read the tablets to gain additional attributes.
Five
But if you didn't
socket.
do that, you might
Oe.
need somebody to translate for you, because you won't be able to understand the old man. Have a listen.
Thorol, appear to me Quahodron, ancient leader of the warrior caste.
Nie no, raz, z jedno może wyjść, czyli 1, 2, 3, no to może być, tak.
Once you enter the Valley of Mines in Gothic 2 as a mercenary to get proof for the invasion of the dragons and orcs, and talk to Garond, the leader of the expedition in the castle, you will be sent to the dig sites to get intel about their ore production. Since you are a mercenary, you will ask him how much he is willing to pay for this excursion, and he will give you 500 gold coins.
The High Priest.
How much will you pay me for the job?
I'm not used to haggling with mercenaries. Well, I guess I have no choice. I'll pay you 500 gold pieces if you take care of this mission for me.
How the Ore Barons got their armors. In an interview about early designs, Mike was asked about the painting of the old Ore Baron that is hanging above Gomez's throne. He said that it depicts a lord who once oversaw the mining operations in the old camp fortress. Here is an excerpt from this interview with Mike Hoge and Flosha. Flosha? So there are 5 barons, namely the big boss, that's Gomez, right hand, left hand, foreign minister, and this grey baron. Then there is this artwork by Uwe Meyer that pretty much looks like a grey baron. That got people thinking, who is that? He isn't part of the game anymore. And this painting
Wrócili, czyli chyba się udało.
doesn't exist. Mike?
Pipi?
No. The picture that you can find there. Did you ever wonder where the Ore Barons got their armors from? Flosha? Yes, somebody must have lived there before. Mike? Exactly. Before the mages summoned the barrier, who lived in the castle? The Valley of Mines already existed. Convicts already dug for ore, but they lived in the prisons and the mines, and the overseers lived in the castle grounds. That's why the guards wear those guard armors. These are the armors from
We didn't
former
start the fire, need
overseers.
something smithed.
And the picture which you can find on that wall is probably depicting that idiot that once... Flosha? Alright, so a former baron.
Fire damage, to jest bez sensu. Minions, nie mam minionsów. Calling strike. No musimy jeszcze bardziej to chyba rozwinąć, tak po prostu.
At first glance, it looks like an orcish brazier, but instead of fire burning, some sort of magic is glittering above it. There are a lot of theories regarding this object. Some say it's an altar, some say it's a teleporter. Fact is, we don't know for sure, but we can find some peripheral information in the Phoenix design documents, an early version of the game that became eventually Gothic. In these documents, the fire mages speak of a swamp of forlorn souls, and that nobody returns from that place with a clear mind. The water mages add that this swamp is a dark place. The masters, an early concept of a thieves guild, says whoever wants to hear the dead talking should seek the swamp of forlorn souls. The fact that the early documents explain that the temple in the swamp is of orcish origin and the vicinity of the nearby orc graveyard makes it clear that this object had clear orcish origins. Since the connection to lost souls, it might even be that shamans used this brazier to communicate with the spirits. Jarkandar Swamp Note. There is a hidden note up on a tree in Jarkandar. An acknowledgement by the developers, them basically saying thank you to the community. Here is what it says. Hello you. Congratulations, you found the hidden note.
Do.
This is an insane tribute message to all fans out there, worldwide. We hope you're mostly satisfied. Also, we'd like to thank our loyal German community at World of Gothic and the other German fan sites for being there. And a very special hello from Sasha to Jake Mega. Yes, I told you. Send us postcards from your hometown. We'd be very pleased to hear from you. See our mail at www.gothic2.com. Getting acrobatics for free. Well, in Gothic 1, you don't have to pay for acrobatics, but you need 10 skill points to learn it from Buster. In Gothic 2, you will only learn it once you cross a certain dexterity threshold. And in Gothic 3, you need to drop from a great height without dying to get this hidden perk once again. Bullet burnt down the exchange place. This is strange because the exchange place doesn't look burnt at all. I asked the guys from Phoenix Tales, who are very knowledgeable about the early versions of the game, but even they don't know what this is about. It may refer to the playable teaser and a note that can be found near the beginning. Right at the start, the exchange place is under attack, and in said note we find information about how well this place is guarded. The initials shown below are LS. Is it Lares? Or Lee Saturas? Or is it someone else entirely? Interesting enough, the attackers had a contact, and I think this entry is hinting at Bullet being this middleman.
Delve!
Bullet is a guardsman from the old camp. He easily lives a better life than 90% of the colony. Why would he risk this position conspiring with the new camp? This remains a mystery. Gothic Elex Shared Universe.
Looks like
Alright, so what do Elex and Gothic have in common? Well, a blue mineral that is very powerful and has magic properties. It is used to fuel the machines of war, and that makes it a very useful resource. Is that enough to connect both franchises? If you have any other information on this that is not a fan theory evergreen, please let me know. Chromonine.
Welcome.
I covered the Chromonine questline in the video called The Lost Themes of Gothic. To make it short, this quest is a scavenger hunt all over the colony. It starts deep within the fog tower on the eastern cliffs in the Valley of Mines. The item that starts the quest is a book, and it is taken off the body of a skeleton mage, and riddles direct you to the next piece. Eventually, you will come back to the dungeons below the tower, and a human corpse has appeared on the ground. Seeking through the stranger's remnants, you will find the last book when suddenly more skeletons appear. A dark voice then says, "To kill one of us was your last mistake." The books are very cryptic, and it seems like chronomine is not a thing nor a person. It seems like a communion of sorts, or receiving great knowledge or wisdom, ascending to spiritual heights, or being illuminated in terms of faith. Noteworthy is that this quest was created by Björn Pankratz and wasn't part of the initial release of Gothic 1. It was later patched into the game with version 1.08. The precise state of holiness in Gothic 2. We banished the sleeper and killed the dragons of the Valley of Moim, decimated the orcs all over Korinus, and got rid of the evil that eventually would have taken over Darknessdom. And still, Korinus can't be saved.
Yay!
Even though I don't like this canon material and wished for a more unclear outcome for the fabled island, Gothic 3 is pretty precise in regards to that. Once we meet Thorus in the third installment in front of Trellis, he tells us what became of Korinus and its inhabitants.
Orcs captured the island of Korinus and brought us humans to the mainland in their galleys. We were given the choice to become slaves or fighters for the orcs.
Vatras just wanted swamp weed. To heal the Eye of Innos, a ritual is needed. The representatives of all three gods need to combine their magic to fix it. Vatras, the water mage who leads this endeavor, also wants 3 stalks of swamp weed. However, if you fulfilled your task, repaired the eye and brought the mages together, but forgot the weed, they will fix the eye nevertheless. Thus, Vatras never needed the weed to heal the eye, but he only wanted to get high deep in the woods with 2 other elderly men.
Dobra, lecimy dalej, nie? Amber, Amulet, Jasper.
Return to the Valley of Mines in Chapter 2. You are tasked with finding the scraper units and to gather intel about their ore production. One such unit was led by Silvestro, who led his unit in between Xardus' 2 towers. Once you search the dig site, which is completely overrun
Dig
by
site.
crawlers, you find a note.
Dig site, rozumiecie? Dig.
Was sent to a safe location, along with a farmer
Dig.
called Diego. If you find him, you can escort him to the mountain pass of Korinus.
How did you manage to get across the pass? I thought that it was swarming with orcs.
There's a path through the abandoned mine which isn't held by orcs.
That's good to know. Then I will head for Korinus before long. I've got a few old accounts to settle there.
Let's go together.
To the pass? Why not? You go first. You've only just come from there. But don't even think about going too close to the castle or to the orc wall.
Once at the pass, don't stop at the passage through the mine. Keep on running to the lake of the exchange place, and Diego will have a special dialogue for you, paired with the nostalgia bonus.
Remember back then, when we met here for the first time? It's been
Boże, Diego brzmi jakby, nie wiem, kurwa, jakby go ktoś za jaja ścisnął.
Gothic sequel. Before Gothic 2 came to be, a small team of Granabites started working on another version of Gothic 2, which is now known as the Gothic sequel. The story was way different, and the setting too. It takes place in the Valley of Mines, which was made part of the mainland, and demons played a bigger role in the story. Only the plot of the first chapter.
Jak pierdolło.
After being revived by Xardus, you make your way to the old camp, which Diego is now in charge of. After solving problems as usual, you eventually will make your way to the stone fortress in which the king now resides.
Kurwa, trochę jak w tym. Jakieś gierce, nie? W Sonicu tak było.
Why the king came to the valley might be that he wanted to ensure the mining operations. Just more or less recently, streamers started playing the unfinished version, and it seems that some people
Streamer.
are working on a mod.
Some kind of streamer.
This what if scenario.
55, 38.
These were factions planned.
No to jeszcze raz możemy sobie przejść.
The healers were in the old camp, now partially destroyed, to tend to sick people. You see, there was supposed to be a sickness spreading in the Valley of Mines, and those affected developed a greenish skin having an almost zombie-like appearance. The demon hunters, on the other hand, were meant to be a main faction, and their armor design
Also right,
but not much
Uh-huh.
is known about them. The main antagonists of the sequel were the demons, and the threat of a returning sleeper was looming over the valley. So it makes sense that these guys, who are professionals regarding the hunt for demons, suddenly appeared. Interestingly enough, some of their armor designs were later reused for the Dragon Hunter's armor. The demonic influence corrupted the wildlife inside the Valley of Mines as well, and might have been the reason for the sickness of the old camp inhabitants. Thora is an important character in the cancelled sequel. She was a fighter and emissary of the kingdom.
Wow, czekajcie, wow.
with a quarterstaff. She was an Amazon type.
Od reklamy. Kurczę, tu się taka gojda dzieje, że ja...
Resided in the stone fortress. Medicus. Another entry I don't have any details about. Since it is next to the entries of the cancelled sequel, this Medicus could very well be a character that was planned to be part of the story. A medicus was a type of doctor during the medieval times, so it makes sense that
Godzilla Earth.
affiliated with the healers.
Siemano, kurczę, tu się tyle dzieje rzeczy na ekranie.
Even though that Gothic and Risen aren't meant to be connected anymore, the Risen 2 manual says that Greg Steelbird, one of the Risen 2 characters, used to plunder and raid near the island of Greece. Torlov is the reason the Orcs won the war. Well, Torlov, the old sea god, was part of a new
Sła rozpierducha.
and he wanted us to open the gates of the old camp fortress, which was the paladin's base of operations in the Valley of Mines.
Nie wierzę. Straciłem tam cały lód.
Could be the reason for why they maybe his ship was crucial to win the upper hand in the naval fight, or the paladins in the Valley of Mines had a real good chance to turn the tide of war. Why the sleeper interfered with the barrier. This was clarified by Mike Hoga in an interview. The original barrier was way smaller and was supposed to be controlled by the magicians. They were supposed to manipulate it and be able to open it to their liking. But when it got summoned, it touched the sleeper deep underground, and his magic changed the magical structure, giving it its properties that we got to know. Orc Assault and Nemesis. These are two
Jezu, trzeba będzie się przebijać teraz. Ja...
up on the cutting floor. The Orc Assault should have happened after the hero opened the Sleeper Temple. The Orcs would have assaulted the overworld from an undisclosed underground location, but in an interview with Mike Hoga, he speculated that the Orcs might have entered the valley through the Free Mine. Nemesis was an event that gradually made the inhabitants of the colony mad. The Sleeper's influence, like in a good old Lovecraftian manner, turned the humans against each other,
To będzie spoko.
bringing forth their lesser motives, to quote Mike. The collapse of the old mine, the killing of the fire mages, and the war between the old camp and the new camp might have been originated from the Sleeper's influence. Man on
61% elemental damage, no to nie...
From one of the interviews with Mike, it is said that this man was possibly one of the former
Chaos damage mi się przyda, na pewno.
controlled the mining operations. So basically, it was meant to be an ore baron before the ore barons we came to know became a thing. This man is also called the Grey Baron and can be seen in some early material. Diego destroyed the tower. So we all know that one of the big watchtowers in the old camp is in ruins, but we don't know why officially.
And
The
fucking
Gothic
ruins.
Chronicle tells the story on how it got destroyed by... Well, that's the thing. There are multiple ways to see it. Diego and Milton were plotting against a guardsman called Brabak. They wanted to deposit valuable goods in his abode so that Gomez would think he stole from him.
Or refusing.
And on their escape from the castle, they eventually end up in the big watchtower. Without anywhere to go, they decide to climb up, but Milton was too weak to carry a big bag of ore nuggets that they took with them, and Diego suggested to drop it on the ground. The fire mage Drago then arrives, and when the guards failed to open the door of the tower, he cast a fireball. The spell eventually connected with the sack of ore and exploded, laying waste to the building. So, whose fault was it? Diego, because he said Milton should drop the ore? Milton, who then actually dropped the ore? Or Drago, whose fireball hit the ore? What do you think? Fall of Cittery
Wina Gomeza.
by Gothic sequel. Well, since the sequel is rather a mystery when it comes to the plot, playing it,
Ja pierdolę.
or the expansion pack, I couldn't really see any connection here as well. Looking at the plot of Fall of Cittery, it seems to be about a demon who's ravaging the lands. The sequel, on the other hand, found that the demons became a threat to the Valley of Mines once more, and that the Sleeper might return. So there is that. Anti-authoritarian themes. Well, in Gothic, you are more or less the reason why the ore production stops. With the fall of the barrier, no more ore is exported to the mainland to fuel the king's machine of war. In a sense, you overthrow an authoritarian regime. The new camp, being the counterpart to Gomez and his men, can be seen as anti-authoritarian as well. You can even go as far to say that you free the Brotherhood from their idol, the Sleeper, as well. In the end, all camps seem to be liberated from the burden of authoritarianism. Make of it what you will. Adanos Shrines. No shrines of Adanos exist in the Gothic franchise, not counting Chronicles of Matana Archolos, at least not in the way you would expect. While Beliar and Innos are fighting for dominion over the creatures of the Mordred to win them over, attracting them with their idols, the faith of Adanos is different since he is the god of balance. You could see the circle of water as living and breathing shrines. If the people want to pray to this god, they need to seek out a magician of water. Ore is an allegory for uranium. Uranium is a type of ore that is used for nuclear fission and therefore a very important part of our everyday lives. Nuclear power plants are producing a lot of electricity that we all use, and it is by far the most efficient way. Certainly that electricity will also be used to wage wars, and the ore is even used in certain types of armor-piercing ammunition. The magic ore is fueling the war in the Gothic universe, so there are some parallels. Oh yeah, the magic ore radiates magic and light, blue light to be more specific. Blue light is also seen in nuclear reactors. It is called the Cherenkov radiation. You doomed Korinis. Without the hero interfering with the happenings inside the barrier, things would have gone very different, and definitely would have led to a different outcome. If the Nameless, however, doomed Korinis, I can't really say. We know that Gothic 3 tells us that the island was enslaved, and yeah, by that metric you pretty much doomed it. The question is, what would have happened if the hero never did what he did? Would the Orcish armies and naval forces just avoid Korinis? I highly doubt that. Destroying the Nordmarian tribes. This one took me by surprise. If you kill all the Nordmarians in Gothic 3, you will get a special ending slide that said, "Of the barbarian people of Nordmar, only the abandoned huts on the snow-drifted hilltops will bear witness to the once proud villages. It will become quiet in the white mountains of Nordmar."
Ale tylko 2 razy mogę użyć. Kurwysyny.
Way back during development of Gothic 1, the developers toyed with the idea that a land south of the Valley of Mines exists. If you take a look at the finalized map, you can see that the south and west is not confined by the ocean, but that in fact a land mass
dobra, czekajcie, trzeba tylko zabić tą siurę. Wow.
However, this idea got never really discarded and was brought up a few times in Gothic 2 in a very vague context. In my video about the dragon hunters and mercenaries, I talk about Silvio's origins. His group came from the south where they were fighting orcs. Other pieces of dialogue are also referring to this mysterious land. Like for example when the hero lies...
No to 2 razy 20, a tu mogę 5 razy użyć, więc... Chyba XPP.
I'm an adventurer from down south.
This land in the south was also used as the setting for an RPG that was played in the Gothic forums, but it is by no means canon. There is this picture of Björn Pankratz holding up this map, and if you look close, you can make out the region south of the Valley of Mines. If we compare this picture with a fan-made map from the RPG that has the cities of Rakia and Gorthar on it, it seems that both are indeed connected. So these maps are just a fan interpretation of an early idea, an idea that is not completely non-canonical. Beta God names. Early in the development of Gothic 1, the gods had different names. Innos, the Lord of Light and Fire, was called Ra, just like the ancient Egyptian sun god. Adrastos was another name that most likely became Adanos, and then there were Sylvanas and Vandas, which maybe were fused together to become Beliar. Returning to Jarkandar in later chapters. Upon returning to Jarkandar in later chapters, you will experience a partial monster respawn, and it is suggested to kill those beasts to level up once more. Even though creatures will appear, no new quests await you. Risen intro concept. So, before Risen came to be, Ralph Macinchik, one of the artists who worked on the Gothic series, created a storyboard for the intro of Risen. In that one, we can see two very familiar figures. One is called Nameless, the other Mentor. I will show you one picture, the others you can look up on comicsfactory.de, Ralph's page. So maybe back in the day it was intended that both universes were connected, but in the end they decided against this, and that was for the better, in my opinion. Velaya implied story arc. Velaya is the mistress of Gomez and is thrown into the colony at the same time like the hero, and there are rumors that she had a bigger role to play. However, even the Phoenix Tales guys didn't have any concrete information on this, and they are quite knowledgeable when it comes to the early ideas and development. You never become a paladin. When choosing the path of the militia in Gothic 2, you later on become a knight, but you never truly become one of the paladins. The armor you eventually get was in possession of a fallen holy warrior who turned into Shadow Lord. Zardes experimented on him when he was still part of the Circle of Fire in Carinus and hid the undead in the vaults deep below. This information is taken from the Almanac, which is stored below the monastery on Carinus.
Hej, jestem z Polski? O kurczę, ja też jestem z Polski. Małpka 2137 tego typu.
You may find a very peculiar constellation of stars that spell KSO. This was, or still is, the name of Kai Rosenkrantz' Counter-Strike clan. I tried to find out if they're still active, but their site is sadly not accessible anymore.
My mana is gone.
Zardes' warning letter. If, for whatever reason, you forgot to bring the Eye of Innos to Irdorath,
That would only slow me
you will
down.
find the satchel
That will
in your
only
cabinet.
slow me down.
It contains the Eye of Innos and the letter by Zardes. The necromancer is very outraged by your stupidity to forget the one weapon that is meant to destroy the enemy. Imagine Frodo walking into Mordor and leaving the one ring back at Elrond's. Here's what the old man wrote.
My young protege, you disappoint me greatly. How could you leave on the ship and not take the Eye of Innos? I can only hope that there are limits to your negligence. Otherwise, you will never rid the world of evil, and I will be forced to personally execute you for your stupidity.
Zardes.
Corpse Caves. Alright, let's say you meet Diego in the Valley of Mines, but later on in the next chapter, he will appear in the city of Carinas. The version of Diego that is in the Valley of Mines will be deposited in such a cave, but the NPC will be dead. Diego in the Valley of Mines has the insert code PC_thief OW. OW standing for Old World. His version in Carinas is named PC_thief_NW, which stands for New World. This whole process has something to do with the worlds being separate instances and not one cohesive open world. If you want to check out these places, the cave in Carinas is below the Stonehenge. You have to glitch through one of the walls there. The cave in the Valley of Mines is below the monastery ruins, the one you explored with Thorn and
Chyba do swoich już chciałem strzelać. Kurwysynów.
Stun bonus exploit malice. In Jarkandar, on the way to the pirate camp, just next to the big valley with the waterfall, you will eventually come across Owen and Malcolm. Malcolm will be gone for a short time later, and when you drop into the big hole into which the poor pirate fell earlier while fighting a lurker, you will get a stun bonus. A little hint at games like GTA, which gave you these kind of bonuses when you did cool tricks with your car, like driving over a ramp and flying over 3 blocks. If you drop down again because you think it's easy experience, you will get a malice, diminishing your XP by the same amount, keeping you from exploiting the game.
Engraved wall in Jarkandar foreshadows Gothic 3's ending. Before entering Adeno's temple, in which you will fight Raven, you can see some rune tablets beside the door. They can actually be translated, and here is what they say. And at the beginning and the end, there was light. You, the one reading these
Alright, to the beach. Hej, jestem z Polski. Ana pa, z Polski jestem.
Well, don't too much into it. It's just a cryptic message on the wall. I cannot see any connection to Gothic 3 because this is simply too vague, and Gothic 3 was a heavily flawed mess, including its lore and plot.
Obscure cheats. There are a few cheats that are strange. Open your character UI and type in Garfield, and everyone becomes fat.
Bad.
Ramen, and they become very flat. Shrike makes them almost look skeletal in appearance. There are other cheats like Slurks that make everything play out in slow motion, or South Park making everything double time. As you can see, most of them are references to pop culture.
Gothic 1 was supposed to be a multiplayer game. True. If I recall correctly, there were screenshots depicting this on the original game box. You can find images easily online. The 4 friends of the Nameless One were once meant to be chosen by different players. This is why they are D&D Dungeons & Dragons archetypes. You've got the thief, the archer, the magician, the fighter, and the psionic. Another indicator for this are the insert codes for each character. PC_psionic is Lester, PC fighter is Gorn, PC mage is Milton, and PC thief is Diego. PC stands for player character, and it is a remnant from exactly that time in development when those were meant to be chosen by players.
Receiving the heavy guard armor. Yes, that is not happening in the final version of Gothic 1 to the detriment of many old canon fans, at least not on the usual way. If you take control of someone wearing the heavy guard armor by using the spell control and then loot any dead body, you can then select the heavy guard armor from your inventory, drop it on the ground, and then pick it up once you're back inside the mini zero. I tried this myself, however it didn't work since I couldn't open the inventory of the possessed NPC. This might have been patched, but I am not quite sure. Here's a video by Andres Nexus who shows you how it is done.
My mana is gone.
No to manę musimy jakoś ogarnąć, kurczę. O, husaria, ja pierdolę. Na, 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 na.
Business management mechanics. So this one is weird as well. The Gothic wiki states that business management was supposed to be implemented into the cancelled Gothic sequel. I can only fantasize what that could mean. Maybe the player would have been able to set up shops or invest into shops around the camps to earn a fair share of the income, but to be honest, I don't have the slightest clue. The only time this got mentioned is on the Gothic fandom on the trivia.
Robar's daughter. Another very unspecific entry in this iceberg. In the unfinished Gothic sequel, Robar II would appear in the Valley of Mines, residing in the mountain fortress. In his company is his daughter, but it's unclear what role she had to play. Another possibility is that a character called Zyra, which appeared in Arcania, was speculated to be the daughter of Robar III, who is in fact the nameless hero. What a mess of a game that is.
The Sleeper's Dreams. So this is the one entry that drove me a little mad because you cannot find anything about it. If it's just a typo and the author meant Sleeper's Dream, singular, it could be referring to one of the drugs that were used in the second chapter. In the design documents, we can find the following dialogue. Gehe in den Tempel zu Baal-Namib, wenn du mehr über die Bruderschaft des Schläfers wissen möchtest. Sage den Wachen das Baal-Padas. Als Vorgeschmack, nimm diese Prise Schläfertraum. Frieden wird in dir sein. This can be translated to, if you want to know more about the Brotherhood of the Sleeper, tell the guards that Baal-Kadash sent you. As a little taste, take this pinch of Sleeper's Dream. So at one point, the sect was consuming not just the fatal swamp weed, but also a substance that could be sniffed, just like the white candy from Scarface. I speculate that this subject was one from the Mind Crawlers, since the design docs describe some members of the Brotherhood as milkers in the OM.
Milkers?
Being the old mine. That implies that they would
Oops.
milk the Mind Crawlers. Yeah, you're welcome. The other possibility is that this entry is indeed referring to the actual dreams of the sleeper. It makes sense. An archdemon is sleeping for 1,000 years. He probably has one or two dreams, but what are they about? Sadly, I couldn't find anything about it. I searched the novel The Sleeper's Ban for key points and also read huge parts of the Phoenix design documents without any success. The only thing we know for sure, and this got confirmed by Mike Hoga as well, that his dreams influence the world around him. See the next entry. If you, however, have any other information about this subject, let us know in the comments, please.
The Sleeper affecting Gomez and the Old Mine. As we learned in the last episode of The Iceberg, in the cut event, Nemesis, the Sleeper would have caused many incidents to happen inside the barrier. Mike Hogan said it could have been a possibility that the Archdemon was the cause for the old mine to collapse and the affected Gomez to kill the fire mages and attack on the new camp. This event also had an effect on other inhabitants of the Valley of Mines, driving them mad.
The Masters. This was also an early idea. It was a secret thieves guild that was managed by the four friends and operated in all camps. It was planned that they would hold secret meetings in random places. One remnant of that idea is that Diego between 3 and 4 a.m.
Nie miałem swojego ziutka tutaj, XPP.
That happened in my recent playthrough of Gothic 1 Classic and I was quite amazed.
Iberian's Potion. There's an item in the game that you can cheat via the console. The command is insert _
1, 2, 5 jest, okej.
This item is called potion for Iberian.
1, 2, 5.
Can't remember what the potion was, but Iberian's death wasn't planned initially. This potion
Coś tam dostajemy, no ale chyba będę musiał.
During the Phoenix phase of Gothic's development, the demons were way more significant. They came from a separate dimension, a demon world, if you will.
Oj, no Nefara miał chyba rację, trzeba trochę pieszyć, bo tak trochę się pierdolę w tym tańcu.
The Sleeper was described as a demigod in said demon world, but other powerful archdemons would exist as well. 7 archdemons would reign over this dimension, but in the end only the Sleeper remained in the final version.
A, to jest ten, myślałem, że...
If you like to find wasn't really supposed to be the last dungeon, but in the end they decided for it anyway. The undead dragon was supposed to be in the old valley of mines.
Old fucking valley.
Surrounded by undead minions.